This is Why the Last Man podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and this time we're talking about Why the Last Man, Episode 6, Weird Al is Dead.
Sorry, will you stop saying that? You just keep oozing this penitent forgive me energy. The bullshit was for the men, and that's over. Okay? Stop apologizing for who you are. You want to get comfortable here? Want people to like you? You gotta step all the way in, show us that you're on board. This 1 foot out horseshit doesn't inspire trust, Nora. The world ended. It's okay to be yourself.
Welcome back, fellow survivors. This is episode 6 of Why the Last Man, and you are tuning in to the Why the Last Man podcast on TV Podcast Industries. Weird Al is dead. Yes, not Weird AI, as I thought it was to begin with.
I had to edit that out of last week's episode because John had said, next episode coming up, episode 6, Weird AI is dead. Which would be a really complex story.
It really would, wouldn't it? I guess
so.
that's when the Terminators come into the story. But I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of the hosts, Derek.
And I am Chris. I am back, but do not fear. I will give you my views for the last episode, just when we get into it. Yeah. But more importantly, we should say Grammy Award winning Weird Al is dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should give him his dues.
Do you guys know much about Weird Al Yankovic? I always wonder how he's translated over to Europe, really, I suppose, because I remember when I moved to America back in the 90s, he was really big over there at the time, and he'd been really big for like 10 years over there at the time. Do you guys know much about Weird Al Yankovic?
There's Eat It. Yeah. There's a few others. I know them to hear when I hear them. Like, they're just all the parody songs.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
He takes like Anaconda Don't, no Anaconda, or
Nope.
He's taken a few of those types of ones and has just made of the very more popular late 2010s or kind of.
It's a bit like the Divine Comedy, I guess.
Ooh. For the Irish listeners.
Well, no, Divine Comedies are actually a very serious band. I was actually thinking the equivalent over here is we all went through that stage when we were about 10 to 12 or that kind of age group where you listen to Monty Python, and that was your music, all that comedy songs of Monty Python, you know? That's kind of what it was for Weird Al. He kind of hit this audience in the 90s who were that kind of age group, the teenage group. And we hear this from Yorick in the episode. He's effectively saying, that was my music. And my sister was so sick of me playing those songs. She was like, I will change your music taste. I will bring you and see Radiohead live. So I love that kind of joke about, he is a parody singer. That's his whole job. He has some fantastic songs, and no slight on them, of course. Monty Python, no slight on them at all. They're massively famous, but they're comedy music. They're not considered highbrow music like Radiohead would be, is the point.
I would more take Monty Python not a musical. They're multifaceted, like they're movies, they're actors, they're comedians.
Of course, again, no slight on Monty Python, but I know definitely every one of my friends as a teenager listened to Monty Python Sings, an album of 25 tracks of Monty Python songs. So that loads of people would know all the words of. But I think that's the joke here. Once again, we mentioned before that Yorick as a character is built around what a lot of people were like when the original books came out. A lot of people who were reading them were exactly like this. So I love the little commentary there and the little connection between Yorick and his sister. Kind of getting into one of my points, which I'll talk about later on, of course.
We're getting too into it. But I just want to bring all of our listeners back very quickly to the fact that Derek said as an 8-year-old, he was listening to Monty Python. And an 8-year-old is then like listening to the Lumberjack song.
Yeah.
Prancing around in underwear. I'm like,
Well, I didn't say I was prancing around in underwear, but I certainly sang Every Sperm is Sacred, and I knew every word of it when I was about 8 or 9 years old.
I was still skipping through a wildflower meadow, singing nursery rhymes with collecting berries and nuts.
At 8. You've made up for it ever since, John.
Well, I still collect nuts, I guess.
But this is not a review of
my childhood, exactly. It really isn't. It is, however, a review of, or should I say, a discussion of Why the Last Man episode 6. Before we get into our spoiler-filled discussion, just a few reminders. You can subscribe to the podcast over at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can select your podcast catcher of your choice. And of course, send in your emails to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com for all the feedback, thoughts, theories, comments, you name it, on anything to do with Y the Last Man. And of course, we're on all the social platforms as well, from Twitter through to Facebook. So please just search for TV Podcast Industries on there.
Just not on TikTok. We're not there. You can also select your the show that you want to listen to as well. We've just finished Marvel's What If, the 9-episode animated series, which was really good fun to chat about. Have every episode of that available over on tvpodcastindustries.com or any podcast catcher of choice for you as well. Still time to enter our pub quiz for What If you are listening or have watched those episodes. We have 9 questions that you can answer and get a chance to get your hands on some What If Funko Pops over there. So still a couple of days to enter that. Just wanted to mention it over here in case you wanted to enter.
Yes, the closing date for the pub quiz is Wednesday the 13th of October.
That's right.
Yep.
But let's get into this episode of Why the Last Man. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Once again, I have to mention the show is based on the comic book series by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerrera. Showrunner for the show is Eliza Clark. The writer of this episode, Olivia Purnell, wrote last week's episode, Manhunt, and has credits on 7 episodes of this season, so a really central writer in the writer's room for this season. The episode is directed by Destiny Ekaraga. She directed episode 4 of the show, Karen and Benji, as well. So great to have all the team back on board for this. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis of the episode?
Sure. Leaving Boston on their way to San Francisco, Yorick, Ampersand, Agent 355, and Dr. Allison Mann hit a snag. They are being followed by army personnel who are investigating the missing helicopters. Holding up in a church, 355 makes plans to lure in their pursuers. But relations deteriorate when Yorick discovers that 355 hadn't contacted his mother. As 355 enacts her plan, she realizes that Allison and Yorick have left to make their own way to San Francisco. In the surrounding woods, the army personnel, in radio contact with the Pentagon, are taken down and sedated one by one, but only after one of their group has come face to face with Yorick Brown. Meanwhile, in the Pentagon, Kimberly keeps up the pressure on Jennifer Brown as she begins to form an alliance with former Cabinet Secretary Regina Oliver, indicating to Regina that President Brown may not be as untouchable as she at first thinks. As the encounter to bring in Agent Sarah Bergman is relayed over the radio, Jennifer becomes anxious as she realizes that her secret could be revealed. But as the radio goes dead and her secret remains safe, she and Regina Oliver clash over the right thing to do as Regina searches for chinks in President Brown's armor. Meanwhile, at the Price Max supermarket, Hero, Nora and Sam start to weigh up their new surroundings and survivors. While Sam, unnerved by their hostile behavior towards him, wants to leave, Nora grapples with the oddities of this group of women in front of her young and impressionable daughter. Meanwhile, Hero, not wanting to get back to her mother anytime soon, is increasingly seduced by the charismatic leader Roxanne, especially after admitting to murder.
So much interesting stuff going on in this episode, I think.
Loads of stuff. Yeah.
Love the developments. Love how things are kind of breaking out for all of the characters here. It's really interesting to me. I think we kind of mentioned last week that this is part of the road trip as the team are going across the country, the people that they're meeting on the road and how they're dealing with this post-apocalyptic world forms a lot of the stories that we're going to see. And it's really interesting seeing that in such depth throughout this show, this episode particularly.
Yeah, I think this really built out the characters further and the relationships between them in
Very
particular.
Much so. That's important.
And it was really interesting. I mean, certainly the dynamics with the threesome now effectively of 355, Yorick and Allison Mann. That was very interesting. And of course, you've got this whole new sort of melting pot at the Price Max supermarket or warehouse as well, which is just it's the nascent beginnings of a new society. They've already got their own ceremonies going on, and very much a different philosophy certainly from Kimberly and Regina, say in Washington in the Pentagon.
Definitely.
So it's really fascinating.
Absolutely. Before we get into our top points for this week, Chris, is there anything from last week's episode you wanted to talk about before we get into our discussion about this episode? Anything that pops into your mind from the storyline of last week?
Just very much the introduction of Mann, or Dr. Mann. Not just a man in general.
The introduction of Mann.
The introduction of
just
Mann.
From the beginning of our
of time. I really enjoyed the short period they spent in Boston and around Harvard, quickly meeting with Mann in the Union. But I did like the feint, if you want to call it that, of when Yorick is pulled, when he runs into, he's caught, essentially kind of going through the printing press building for the resistance. And we see the other side of the resistance, where we see that they are actually not what the army is portraying them as, or are they? Again, we're left questioning. There's good people on both sides, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what we also see then is straight away Yorick is assumed to be trans, looking for tea, and I was like Earl Grey, and then I again copped. So what happens when you take a week break? You're like, oh yeah, testosterone. Yeah. Sure, this is where the story's going. Okay. I like that. I like that. I missed Hero. Obviously, we get a lot more Hero storyline in this one, so that was fine. But I did like that introduction, and it made sense when you see it. When you see this episode, you understand then why they took a break, because they focused on quickly introducing all of the character development around Dr. Mann, who she is. As 355 says to Yorick, go do what you do best, make friends. Yeah.
Last question then for you on that. What do you think of Diana Bang as Dr. Elsie Mann?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Her portrayal is very much what I expect from reading the comics. It's that the drunkenness when she talks about the death of all. It's like, we'll save men, but what about all the male dogs? Oh my God, the dogs! And where she sits down crying, and you're like, oh God, they have to start cloning dogs now and sheep, and
well, yeah,
I really like that. And then just also the arrogance as well, and the abruptness of where she just pushes the 355's gun out of the way of her face when they're first introduced.
That was really cool. I will say one of the things I really liked about Diana Bang and how she's doing the performances. You're right, it is that arrogance of her. She just talks over people before they finish sentences, and I love that about her. It's a really great touch, because you can't get that across in a comic book.
No.
But it's a great addition to her character in the show. And she has some great moments in this episode too.
Oh, yes.
I think her first line of the episode is my favourite of the episode, but I know we'll talk about a lot of that. So glad you enjoyed the last episode. Do you want to kick us off with your top moment?
Sure. My top moment is the downward spiral of 355.
Okay.
And this is, I'm being a lot of hyperbole here. But essentially what I'm talking about is how they are, in my opinion, shifting the dynamic of, or the audience's perception of 355 and Yorick. I had previously discussed in episode 4, when we had the bridge scene, how, Yorick was the Yorick and Hero were they're the protagonists that you love to hate. And they like, you are basically going, oh my God, why is this man the last man?
Exactly.
And it's just like, he is so ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Just get on with it. And then you feel bad for the things that 355 has to go through. And then pretty quickly, last episode, we are kind of given this, what's going on with 355? What's this? Who's this person she's trying to meet? What's this? Like, is this the culprit ring? Another agent? And question marks? And you're like, who are they talking about? Why is she going to kill this person? And you're starting to question who they are, what they do, why they're being placed everywhere. And then she's very abrupt and rude to Yorick, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And then into this episode where she is, you're questioning, what's going on with her. Why is she sleepwalking? And then why is she like not talking to President Brown? Why is she not calling in? Why is she holding things back?
Yeah.
And then it is, and I made the joke, alas, poor Yorick. You are starting to be made feel bad for Yorick because Yorick is the one like having to like who is being put on the brunt of this, of these changes, and like he is now becoming like, why is 355 doing this to him? So I just found it quite interesting to see how they are now making you question the motives of 355.
Yeah.
Question who that character is. So, and the best example is the President Brown. Is like, she sent Yorick out with 355.
Yeah.
And over the course of this and the helicopter scenes or the helicopter being found and all that, and then right to the end, what's going on? Like, she is like, and we'll get more into that, I'm assuming, across our discussion of this episode. So I just thought it was very interesting. We are now 4 episodes left in the season. And you've gone from, in my opinion, 355 was the best character.
Yeah.
To now, as an audience, going, oh, I don't know if we can trust her. What about poor Yorick? We have to care about poor Yorick.
Interesting.
I just thought it was it's a very clever narrative shift of focus. And just by literally adding a few things and making you question the motives of a character and feel sorry for a character who's put in this position, it has, within 2 episodes, shifted the dynamic.
Interesting, yeah, and I know it's expanding on the characters as well. That's one of the things that they're doing in the show. A couple of points on what you said. I really liked that they did another sleepwalking scene in this episode because it explained something that I was talking about back in episode 2 or 3 after the helicopter crash, where it opened with 355 walking towards the edge of a cliff. So now we know that was sleepwalking. I wasn't sure whether it was just part of the crash. She was literally sleepwalking. That's where she had her dream sequence where she was singing in the jazz bar. So I'm really glad they did that. So that just confirms that, which was cool. What I also liked about the episode, if you take those elements out of the questions about the motivation of 355, I think she actually opened up quite considerably in this episode. We have the opening scene effectively, which I'll talk about a bit later on, but we have that opening scene. There's a moment where herself and Yorick are smiling with each other and she's saying, thanks so much for this. We needed a bit of a break. And she is really hurt. That moment when Dr. Mann convinces Yorick to leave and she finds herself alone and she's doing all of this stuff. She specifically said to Yorick, I am putting myself on the line here. I'm possibly going to die tonight, all to save you. That's not a great situation for me to be in, is it? And then they walk out on her. She is really hurt by that. I love her reaction as well. I love that she takes it out on Dr. Mann because, it's not to do with Yorick. She's there to protect Yorick. She doesn't need Dr. Mann interfering in her plans. She's kind of like, you keep your mouth shut. We're getting you to San Francisco. And when we get there, then the show is yours. But from now till then, the show is mine, effectively. So I think that really comes from a place of being hurt, that they would think anything bad of her at all. She's only done, from their perspective, she has only done everything to protect Yorick.
And she stopped killing.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But whether she's shady or not, they don't really know.
No.
And that shouldn't come into play. From their perspective, she has done everything to keep Yorick alive. So I love that part of her character as well.
Yeah, I loved just the change in relationship here, that even Yorick and Alison Mann effectively saying, yeah, we need to get out of here after that relationship breaks down. At least from Yorick's point of view, that's why he goes with Alison Mann, but it's also it's the 2 civilians with effectively a trained spy or covert agent, and that's the other thing. And there's a great moment with Alison Mann where she goes, when they're holding up in the church, where it's like, this isn't Home Alone, this is Waco.
There you go.
For her, for Alison Mann, 355 is as far away from what she does as she could possibly think of. She is dealing with high-tech kit and research. Agent 355 is designed and built and conscripted to kill and be anonymous. So like, it's just that dynamic, isn't it really? But I think Derek's right as well, that I think she is starting to form a bond with Yorick, certainly. Alison Mann is only just on board, even just because she's protecting him, even if it's just, a professional bond. It's there. And so
she would deny that to the hilt.
No, she would, absolutely. But to your point, that she looks hurt, and it's coming from a place of being or slighted even.
Yes.
That, it's that where she just sort of lays the rules down. So I thought this was really good, just sort of mixing up those dynamics, because and I guess that's it. On this journey, there will be ups and downs, periods of high pressure, low pressure, and this one where all of a sudden, that realization that she is being looked for by three, I called them the three bikers of the apocalypse from the but with a picture of her, that jolts her out of that. This was good to have a break. It was like she needed to switch on again and then focus. And like you could see, she was setting traps, looking for stuff to set traps, thinking about her exits, what she was going to do. And then they just kind of up and leave, which, they don't stick to her plan that she's laid out to them. So
and they leave her behind effectively. So she's all on her own. There after effectively committing her life to keeping Yorick safe. Speaking about reactions, I absolutely love Dr. Alison Mann's bomb drop on 355, where she goes, it must be interesting being his bodyguard, and just walks away, and you see the face of 355, just the heckles are raised, the anger is rising, like, I am not a bodyguard, I trained for decades to be in the culprit ring, I'm not a bodyguard. You can see all this anger going up. Like, this is why Dr. Alison Mann is so important in here. We had those two characters of 355 and Yorick clearly scared of 355 to begin with, being dragged all over the country by her, being told to shut up, sit there, don't do anything, and Alison Mann just in the mix here, just needling at them a bit, which I think is a lot of fun. I love that opening scene. And again,
exactly.
I meant to say, the opening line from Dr. Mann going, do you think he masturbates? Because he really should. I think you should tell him, 355. You have a better relationship with him than I do. And 355 going, I am absolutely not telling him that. There's no way. That's a callback to the comic books. That is a constant joke, effectively, that they're together for years. And there is a whole masturbation joke that's going on throughout it. So I love that they brought that in for the comic book. And it just speaks to Dr. Alison Mann and I guess the valve that she doesn't have to stop talking. 355 just gives her looks. That's not the way to stop Alison Mann from pointing out the things she wants to point out. So loving her again this episode.
I think that's kind of mostly my point. I'm interested to see where they take us over the next 4 episodes with the Culpa Ring, but more importantly, just with 355.
Yeah.
But that's my point. Johners, do we want to talk over to your point?
Yeah, mine is, it's Nora, Mackenzie, Sam, and Hero really settling into their new warehouse, I guess, or temple, of, the Amazonians. Like, we get that they're very, strong group from the comics, and we get that referenced here by their charismatic sort of no holds bar leader, Roxanne. But I think, this was, as I mentioned earlier, I just thought this was really interesting. They've effectively come into the beginnings of a new culture. And it's one that, is butting up against everything that they have, for themselves, with the exception probably of Hero, in the sense that, it is a bit like constantly the New Year's Eve. It's like, throw out the old and ring in the new. And the battle cry is, you don't have to carry what you did before, now. And so, for Hero, that is hugely, sort of attractive to her. And certainly, I know this is jumping very much to the end, but, she's both, read by the other women while she's having a bath, saying, you look sad, really sort of probing at her. But then at the same time, at the end, while she's sat outside having a cigarette and she's talking with Roxanne, and Roxanne is almost, she seems very flexible, really. It's like, well, you can leave if you want, or you can stay, but it's to remember.
I want you to stay. I want you to stay.
Yeah, you can be whoever you want to be here. You can be you. And that's after really describing to her the events with her boyfriend, in the ambulance, effectively. And Roxanne is a former police officer. So this is like new ground. And it's cathartic for her. She certainly doesn't want to go back to her mum. She's been delaying on that front. And I think that was really, really good. This attraction that's possibly, at least for the time being, is floating around in Hero's mind. And this contrasts with Sam, who is effectively being treated like a pariah. And completely outcast. We have that whole thing with Kelsey where she's saying, well, I actually do like men, but I'm just pretending because I'm here and I'm safe and I've got food and I've got shelter. But we see her getting beaten up at the end because of her getting too close to Sam, and
specifically contravening the rules.
Yeah,
so everybody was told you cannot be one-on-one with Sam, and she went against that twice.
Exactly.
So I think that part is also really important because while we're learning about Roxanne's group right now, and everything seems pretty kosher, and there's a good ideology behind it, I suppose. Leave everything behind. You're here. You can be a new person, live the way you want to live here, and we will accept you effectively. You can see there's some elements underneath that where it's a very strict regime, which is also really important when you're setting up a new culture, or at least half of that.
Well, society, I guess. I mean, she even turns away, a group of 4 women with their child, and so they turn them away. They've got the starts of their own little ceremonies, the ceremonial funeral and rebirth where one of the women comes back as Athena, and you have there where Hero stays and watches, where Sam is weirded out really and heads off. And this is the interesting thing, is that at the start of this episode, you do have that really great little moment between Sam and Hero where she gives him a bottle of testosterone, and then there's the Xanax and all that around, for emotional therapy. And you have this really personal moment, and where Hero is effectively saying how much she cares for Sam, in that the ambulance driver she didn't lose the man she loved in that. It's not necessarily that she loves him, and we've had the scene where they kissed, but she certainly cares a lot about Sam. And I thought, this kind of just put up front the dilemma that's coming into their relationship here, because Sam is effectively being isolated. And he can feel that, and he can feel that. And then the other
can't stay here. Like that's not the place for him.
It's not at all. And
but where can he go? That then leads to the question.
Exactly.
Well, where can he go, and who will he go with? Because the other interesting dynamic then is just with Nora, with having her daughter there. And, you get that moment where Nora's kind of like going, right, I'm getting my kid out of this circle discussion about men and so on. And you have Roxanne being very forceful to say, I'm speaking to Mackenzie, not you. Now, in the end, she takes her out and comes back to apologize with a cup of tea, because it's also new for her. And that's the thing for Nora. These aren't the social norms that she remembers, certainly in politics, which would be heavily male dominated anyway. So, that was really good. And that's where we get the first sense of the Amazonians, with Roxanne mentioning the Amazonians from Greek mythology.
Yep.
You have even just the choice of the name at the rebirth of Athena, which is a Greek goddess. And it is all sort of framed with Roxanne casually taking off her top in front of Nora to see her mastectomy that she's had from previous surgery, and being very, that's what it is, and talking about how actually, with Nora's mum, who went through the same procedure, who had implants, that. She says you spend so much time battling the cancer, you forget to battle the doctors that will want to put breasts back onto you, effectively. Yeah. And so, the survivors seem kosher, but it's a new world in the four walls of this warehouse, and it's one with these three characters of Hero, Sam, and Nora are having very different experiences. Even with the sort of the conciliatory cup of tea that Nora brings to Roxanne, she kind of goes too much, and you get Roxanne saying, "You just give off this penitent BS therapy vibe, stop it and sort of be yourself and sort of spread your wings, rebirth, so." I just thought this was fascinating, really good stuff. And I have to say, probably, with the rebirth, I guess they did, shy away from the comics at this moment with the rebirth, in that it was simply being buried in soil and then it being washed off, and then reborn, like a baptism, effectively. Whereas the comics goes down a more extreme route, I guess, to show that.
Which
connection.
I think will come, which I think the catalyst being Hero or Nora. One of them, in my head right now, it is Nora, to prove her loyalty to this new culture. Because at the moment it's a culture, it's not at the other place yet.
As I said, maybe half of that word.
Exactly. Half of that word. The first half.
And Roxanne calls out Nora to say, you have to prove your worth. You have to You have to show commitment.
Yeah. I'm just not too sure whether they're going to go exactly as extreme as
I don't know.
I'm not too sure whether they do that. I love how they've incorporated into the story this idea of carrying your scars with you from the mastectomy. For Roxanne, it's really important to her. She didn't want to have reconstructive surgery. A lot of women don't. And I love that story is coming out, but I'm not too sure whether she would enforce that on other people, which is what kind of happens in the comic books.
At the moment, her character doesn't seem like it would enforce it. And that's why it might come in through a show of allegiance from another member. It might not even be Nora. That might be possibly too far, but it depends where Nora goes on this journey. And it was only really the first glimpse of seeing all three. And including Mackenzie, I mean, I really thought Quincy Kirkwood, who plays Mackenzie, was just really, really good as well, showing just not really how to take this in, and looking to her mum for guidance, but also then kind of being a little nonplussed when her mum goes up to put soil on the woman who is later to be born as Athena. So I just thought she played it really well, and ultimately I just feel Nora Mackenzie will be at the center of what and why she does things. Even with Roxanne. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops.
Oh, she is going to develop it. There's definitely moments when when Roxanne is saying to her, you know, just stop saying sorry. You need to assert yourself here, and you can feel Nora taking on the lessons from Roxanne. So remember back in episode 1, we had that moment with the president saying, shoot a gun, and she was shivering kind of at the idea that she would be shooting a gun. That's not going to be Nora by the end of the season. I think at this stage we were saying maybe by season 3 we'll have a really strong Nora. I think it's coming much sooner than that in the show. Couple of things about these scenes since we're talking about them that I really liked. Anybody get any vibes of Dawn of the Dead?
No, definitely.
Where they were sitting on top of the roof of the supermarket, effectively, with their guns and their seats laying out. Loved that they had their mannequins dressed up with cardboard guns to assuage anybody from coming in. That is one of my favorite zombie movies, so I really like that they have that in there in this post-apocalyptic world, that they've set out this area for themselves and nobody else is allowed to come in. They'll be seen for miles. Really, really good setup scene. I thought it was a really, really interesting one. Did you see how the Xanax scene played out as well, John? You mentioned the Xanax scene with Hero and Sam. Did you see how it played out? About 10 minutes later, when the women are coming up to try and get into the supermarket, you see Sam and Hero clearly having taken some of the Xanax, being surprised by it. They both go, whoa. this real reaction, like they've been on Xanax for the last half hour as well. Thought that was really good fun. Speaking of movie references, I missed it on your point, Chris. Predator 355 in the woods. Love that moment when she's hiding behind the tree and then the camera pans over and she disappears from behind the tree and appears behind another tree to take one of the attackers on. Loving these little touches in the episode.
Definitely. Yeah.
I won't even destroy our fellow survivors' ears with my attempt to do the Predator noise. Because I think I know what it is in my head. I don't think it'll come out well.
Well, soon as I found out that the leader at Price Max was Roxanne, the name was Roxanne, I just... yes, that's exactly what I thought might actually happen, and I have now proven
you've proven it right. Well done. You don't need to put on a red light. Price Mart.
I really do hate the police and Sting, I must say.
But we're not here to talk about police and Sting. I do want to just close this point, if that's okay. I'm very interested to see how they progress Hero. And I know that's reductive because it is the TV show and she is one of the main characters, and the whole thing is her character growth and her arc and stuff. It's more what I'm very interested to see is, will they deviate from the comic books? And that is what, and the reason I ask this is because they've shown deviations, there's new characters, there is alterations, and it is an adaptation. And based on this, this episode alone with her and Nora there, and I'm very interested to see, will one take the place of the other? Will one share their, I'm interested to see what, because I think this is the fun part, that we're not, and this is always the problem with any show that is adapted from another medium where that other medium is known. So, like the upcoming The Last of Us, like The Wheel of Time, I am well aware of all those stories. I know them quite well. So theoretically, I am not going to be shocked by certain things. But this is the fun part where they started making changes. Some of them are standard, some of them are minor. Some are brand new characters. So because of that, I'm interested to see, essentially, will they continue the path that is predestined for some of the characters, predestined in the comic books? Or will they deviate from that path, and will we get multiverses of Why the Last Man?
A little different to that. But yes, it's an adaptation, so you're really intrigued to see how the team behind the show are going to adapt this story for a long-running TV show, or for a TV show that may run a few seasons and hopefully will. I agree with you. There's something really interesting just simply about Hero being there with other people. You're right. No Nora in the comic books, no Sam in the comic books. And I think those two elements, already Nora is very separate from Sam and Hero.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a discussion in this episode. There's everything that's going on between Nora and Mackenzie, her daughter, is going on for them, and then the experience of Sam and Hero is separate to them. But even having someone like Nora that needs to raise her game to survive in this world, effectively, and that's her storyline, whatever path that takes. And then on the other side, you have Hero. Effectively, she has her best friend that she doesn't have to take care of. So that's a wrinkle. Very different from the comic books. Hero was a very lost character in the comic books when she came across this group. And this is a really attractive group for a very lost person. Like you mentioned, the girls when they're talking to her, in the bathing scene, effectively, where they're saying to her, are you okay? No, really, are you okay? I love they're pushing at her and they're prodding her to find that kind of way in with her. What is that they can do to help her and incorporate her into this group? So so that's quite interesting. And
it's a great complication.
Yeah,
Sam is a great complication for Hero, and what comes of it, whatever that may be, because you can see, here you can already see the idea of not betrayal but abandonment from Hero. We Sam cannot possibly stay here. It will not be good for him, and certainly if he is being isolated. It's the extent to which Hero will stay or go with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And another call out to director of this episode for a fantastic moment where we had Sam sitting on that gigantic bed with the staircase that has to lead up to the bed that he's sitting in, but he's there all on his own in this massive room, sitting on the bed, like 5 or 6 feet off, probably 10 feet off the ground. I love how lonely that makes the character of Sam, how much of an outsider it makes him as well. I think that was a great directorial choice there as well. One final bit, just on Nora. We mentioned the fact that Kelsey got beaten up by the other girls, including Athena, who had just transferred to her new persona, effectively. They're kicking her and beating her on the ground. Really important. Nora watches on. She is watching through, she's opened a curtain, watching them kick Kelsey on the ground, and then just closes the curtain and walks away. So Nora knows exactly what's going on in this group as well and chooses to ignore it, effectively. So really important that that's part of her character too.
No, absolutely. Derek, what is your top moment from this episode?
My top moment, my top moment
is everything else.
Is everything else, exactly. I'm going to use the opening sequence to kind of take us through the rest of the episode. How about that?
That sounds fair.
I think it's one of the best sequences in the show so far. It's such a beautiful artistic sequence, and it gives all the characters a break from everything that's going on. And that's the purpose of it. It's a moment where we hear a beautiful version of Karma Police by Radiohead. This beautiful vocal version of it. Effectively celebrating the lost. Something that nobody's had the opportunity to do since the start. People have been running around trying to get here, there and everywhere, trying to fix problems, trying to find places to get food and survive. And this is the first episode where we have a breather for all those characters. And I love that it kicks into having 355 and Yorick having a bit of a laugh. As I said, 355 going up. I'm really glad you made a stop here. They're kind of going, this is a moment where we can appreciate the things that we have lost, effectively. But the song itself, I think, is really important for the series, and that's where I'm going to kick into the rest of the episodes. It's a perfect choice for the show because you've got lots of people in grey areas, and the song itself, Karma Police, is about karma, effectively. It's about you do bad things, you will get kicked for it. You do good things, you'll be rewarded for it. That's the purpose of Karma Police. And you see throughout that song, you have people getting more and more violent. They're effectively saying, you're doing something that I don't like, you're going to be punished for it. And it gets more and more intense in the song and ends with for a minute there, I lost myself. And that kind of speaks to all the story that's going on in the Pentagon. These people that are vying for power in the Pentagon, people who are vying for different positions, who are fighting with each other about things that really are absolutely unimportant in this world. The whole thing that's important is keeping the human race alive, is working out ways to save other people. It's not about who's sitting in the big chair in the White House and whether you're the right-hand person or not. All of that, all those machinations, all the stuff that's going on there, you'll be punished for it when
Yeah.
if people realize that you did that instead of saving people's lives. So that's why I think the song works perfectly for the story.
Well, it's that really great little comeback from Jennifer Brown to Regina, where she says, "This isn't a blood feud." You know, the partisan politics that they're trying to keep going between Democrat and Republican. Even after everything that's happened, she says, "This isn't blood feud. We're on the same side," and you know, puts the challenge to Regina: make yourself useful. And what are you going to do to make yourself useful and work together? It's a really good moment.
Absolutely.
Which is a mistake, but that's a separate discussion.
I mean, she has
Poke the bear.
Absolutely, but she has underlined here that there's going to be an election in the future to decide who the future president is. Jennifer Brown has said that it will go out to the public, and Regina's using the old tactics. She's basically going, I will reveal to the world that you did all of these things, that they will all hate. You made these choices, and I will make sure that everybody knows. So she's already starting her smear campaign. That is the platform she's going to run on to become president. And Jennifer Brown's going to be running on the platform of, look of all the things I did to get us through this bad situation. So love that they're putting themselves at odds. Clear reference to the 45th president of the United States as well. When we hear that Regina Oliver was a TV star, a TV evangelist before she moved on to this. So I love that she has that line. I think I believe that that former president did have a similar line in the past where she says, there's nothing wrong with being on TV effectively. So, why do you think it's that bad? So I believe that is absolutely a reference to the former guy.
I think it was very much, it's on the nose, but to the, to those in the know, those who would catch it. Let me say that. It was only on the second viewing that I caught it.
Really?
And I was like, clever. Okay,
that's
very, that's clever. Well done. That's I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But it was just that I had essentially missed it on the first, and I was like, oh, okay. And I think there's a lot of that why I enjoy our second watches usually more than the first, because you capture that, some of the nuances and the subtle choices.
Yeah, definitely. I did like as well that they gave her, Regina Oliver, that little bit of backstory, that little bit of context actually, with Kimberly at the Wall of the Fallen. And that actually she could have been a Democrat herself. She was born into a Democratic sort of leaning household, but she voted Reagan just to really just get at her mother. And then hasn't looked back, as she said. So it's just really interesting. But at the same time, you know, there's the element of feminism though, where, you know, she's saying Democrats just think that feminism applies to them. I'm a feminist, but, you know, I'm not considered one by other women, because of her viewpoint. So that was a really, you know, it's that, the contested spaces of different philosophies in terms of feminism being brought up there, I thought was really, really good as well.
Yeah, one of the other contested spaces that's brought up in the episode, I'll just take my cue from that, John. A little bit of religion, once again, brought in here with Kimberly. We kind of thought this was going to happen when we heard Christine being pregnant, but Kimberly just pushing in those ways that people tend to do when they believe they're in the right. You know, the whole piece with Christine saying, you know, I don't know whether I'm going to keep it. And Kimberly kind of cuts her off and goes, oh, no, don't worry. We Christians do get a bad rep sometimes, but we're really caring people. We're here and open. I'll take care of the baby for you if you want me to. Christine's going to go, hang on a second. I haven't chosen anything to do here, and you're not involved in the conversation. We're not friends. In fact, she's pretty much direct opposition to Christine. If these were squaring off in a battle ring, it would be Christine versus Kimberly and Regina versus Jennifer. Like that is where they lie. But I like that Kimberly's kind of trying to get the clause in there with Christine.
I actually felt in this episode, not to say that I am having sympathy with Regina, but I felt like it would
that you're having sympathy for Regina.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But it's more when I was balancing up Kimberly and Regina, it felt that there was the potential for more pragmatism and flexibility from Regina rather than Kimberly, because Kimberly has got all the conviction of a saint, from her religion, whereas Regina's not really, she doesn't come as overly religious or zealous. That's not to say that she's not, and maybe it's just not really come out. Maybe she's really, because that's the thing, the dynamic at the moment between them. Kimberly is trying to effectively thrust herself on everyone and dominate them in that sense. It's like, we need to work together. And Regina's just kind of, playing it quite cool at that wall of the fun, just kind of like listening, doing the conversation and so on. And you can't really read her very well. Yeah. So that in itself could be really dangerous and completely undermine the feeling I just got at the end of it, which was that possibly Regina might not be the issue here.
Well,
not to say that she won't be.
It was just that conversation with Jennifer where she was saying there's look how many people are outside the gates right now. What we need is tanks, we need weapons, and we need to stop them.
Gear.
And Jennifer's kind of going, oh, hang on a second, that's not a good idea. Let's not start the putting down the iron fist here. That's not the best way to deal with people who are starving and looking for a way.
I just mean, I get Regina is going to be, I'm not suggesting that they're suddenly going to be best buds, or BFFs. It's just simply that she is going to challenge Jennifer. Absolutely. Yeah. And she's going to want to become the next president of the United States without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. But it's the conviction and the Machiavellianness of Kimberly.
Yeah.
Because it's even, I love that whole scene between her and Christine. And I think she's doing exactly the same as she's done with Regina and with anyone that she's trying to pull into her sphere.
Yeah.
It's the idea that her conviction is so strong, she doesn't believe her father swears. It's that kind of thing.
And we did see in episode 1 that he does swear.
Yeah.
So she is painting a better picture of her deceased father, as we all do.
It's the purity vision, isn't it, of her father, post his, after he's died, really.
Yeah.
But, with Christine and Kimberly, initially, again, it's like, it's just so textured. It comes across as her kind of just wanting to, sort of adopt the baby once it's born. But, ultimately this is trying to get at her. It's trying to undermine her, in herself. And I'm there going, I can just sense that for Kimberly, it would be bigger things to undermine her working relationship with Jennifer as well. That's not to say she's not genuine about saying, well, you think it through, and if you want to sort of not have the baby, then always think that you can continue to have it and I will adopt it effectively.
Yeah, okay.
It's not to say that she's not wanting to do that, absolutely, because you see how at a loss she is with losing her 3 sons.
Yeah.
But there's also the element where, that is freaking Christine out, and that it will play into the wider political stuff that's going on in this.
Yeah. And you've just made me remember how I was going to connect Karma Police into Kimberly's discussion. So it was just in that conversation with Christine, Kimberly says, I originally thought this was punishment from God, like Eve and the apple. We're the tainted ones in heaven. We're the ones that got men and women kicked out of the Garden of Eden is the perspective that she had. And we're now finally being punished for that because all the men have been taken away, is the perspective of her. So that's the karma punishment, effectively, is her connection. There you go. And then she turns it and says, now I think God is creating new life within you to show life amongst all of this death. So effectively, not only has she said that she's changed her perspective on why the apocalypse happened, now she's telling Christine that she's almost like Mary, the mother of Jesus. She's effectively saying, I'm looking at you and God has given you this baby inside you because we are in this post-apocalyptic world and he wants to show us that there can be life after the apocalypse, effectively.
Yep.
So that is absolutely how she's manipulating Christine, or trying to, at least. And remember, this is a character who's manipulated from the first moment we saw her, right back from episode 1. That's what she's done when she met 355. She was trying to get her on side and saying, oh, I have card games with all the security teams, so she's someone that has always worked her way to try and get on the side of anybody that can further her career or further her abilities or power, effectively, in this world. So, and she's just continuing to do that. I absolutely love her in the show. I really do. I love her when she's on screen. But she is, some of her machinations are really difficult to take.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Definitely.
There you go. That's my point. Neatly wrapping up most of the other things in the episode.
Excellent. Any notes from anyone? I know I've just got a couple. Just one scene I don't know if we've mentioned, but I love Alison Mann going the body of Christ to ampersand with the wafers, which was really just trying to coax him out from the carrier. I broke up laughing with that. I know we mentioned about the Predator 355, but the woods was great. I really, really enjoyed that whole sequence. It felt very Bondy, very Bond-esque in a sense, taking down these agents, sedating them, but also that one of those agents does get a good old gawk at Yorick.
Yes, and Yorick lies about it because 355 was going to kill that agent.
Yes, exactly.
100%.
And I loved how that played out in the war room in the Pentagon with Jennifer. With Christine there, I think they hold hands underneath because either potentially her son is going to get shot, or it's going to be revealed that her son has survived. So it was just really nice and tense with all that action going on in the woods with the takedowns of the three bikers of the apocalypse.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. We have had that moment already with Nora, who's recognized hero out in the wild, effectively. Yeah. So it's likely that at some point somebody will see Yorick and know exactly who he is straight off the bat. So even with these three agents on their tail, if they don't know who he is, if they snap a photograph of him, that could cause major trouble for Jennifer too. So I really like that.
Yeah. Indeed. One very simple note from me is just the choice, and I really don't know whether it's the actor or i.e. Ashley Romans or the actual director's choice, but when 355 is sleepwalking at the top of the church, there's a choice just for a single tear as she looks out and she is sleepwalking. She has a single tear rolls down her cheek before she's led back by Yorick.
Yeah.
Just amazing. It was just a single tear, and I was just like, "Oh, this is going to lead into some really deep, dark stuff." And I was just like, "All right, perfect. Take me on this journey." But wow.
Absolutely. And I love that Yorick's reaction to it, because he's coming up giving out to her effectively and then sees the tear and goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that I hurt you. Are you okay?" He thinks the tear is because of him as well. So I love how that.
It's the fact as well that Agent 355 sleepwalks with her eyes open.
Yeah.
So that I was thinking she was fully awake.
Yeah.
And maybe had even killed the three riders.
Yeah.
It was just. It's not until that interaction with Yorick. It was even, I think, that the first time we say it after the jazz dance, we were saying her atop of the cliff. She had her eyes open, so I was like, oh, she'd woken up beforehand, but actually she was there asleep with her eyes open, and woke up, ultimately with looking into, the long fall down the cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. So her subconscious seems to be trying to kill her, trying to make her commit suicide. That's not cool. Interesting for the rest of the season. One final point for me then, just because we didn't mention it. Regina kind of deals with something in a little piece of dialogue in this episode. We thought there was a massive threat to Jennifer's presidency, with Regina being returned to office. She effectively says all the women are standing with Jennifer, and that's why she's not president. So she literally that is dealt with now until the election happens, which Jennifer has confirmed is going to happen
Yeah.
in the future. But it's really important to note that effectively now Regina doesn't have any specific ability to get into that seat right now. There has to be some option for her to become president. And the option that's been put there is we'll eventually have an election. So,
Yeah.
so there you go. Just thought I'd mention that.
Eventually.
Okay, good stuff, everyone. Let us get into what our overall thoughts of the episode were. Yeah. Derek, what did you think of this episode of Why the Last Man?
Love it. My favorite episode so far. All you have to do is put Radiohead in an episode of a show, and it's my favorite. No, no, genuinely, I loved how the episode was structured. Loved what was going on, and loved the elements that we're learning about all the new characters, and of course the quartet that we have, the central quartet of Yorick, Ampersand, 355 and Dr. Mann. I think they're working really well together for me in the show, and exactly as I enjoyed them in the comics. But we have all the rest of the characters now, all the ensemble cast who are working really well for me. I'm really enjoying the stories. I'm really enjoying how all of the grey areas that the show is exploring. Nobody is a simple character in this show, and I like how it's coming across. We're 4 more episodes for the show, and I think there's still loads more story to tell about what's going on in this new world, and it's really good for me. Loving it. How about yourself, Chris?
I really enjoyed this. Even for the relatively slow. We got some major plot points, but we are on a long cross-country journey. This is not James Bond. This is not action set piece, bit of dialogue, action set piece, action. This is a bit more talky.
It's a drama show, Chris. Yes.
It's a drama show, yes, exactly. But it can also be a drama action, look at Jack Reacher or Jack Ryan.
We got action.
Maybe that. Probably some may say too much action in season 2, but that's a different show. We're not talking about it here. Bringing it back, I am enjoying it. I think, again, as we discuss it more in these discussions, I start to enjoy it more, even more than my initial viewing or my second viewing. My one question is the choice of twisting 355 to become more questionable. And I think it's a choice. It's whether that choice will pay off, I think is going to be. And I know I'm talking literally, as you said, we have 4 episodes. We have just under 4 hours, maybe 3.5 hours to get there. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing, where we end up at the end of this season. Because I think, as I said, they are diverging in certain parts from what I know as the comic book. So I want to see where they take that choice or diverge even further. But yeah, so therefore, overall, I enjoyed it, and I would say that it is quite a good episode to watch.
Yeah, but just to confirm for the non-comic book readers, there are questions over 355 because she's a member of the Copper Ring in the comic books. That is part of the story.
That is, excuse me, sorry, yes, that is exactly, yes, that is part of it. I just think they're potentially leaning slightly heavier into it in this episode. That would be the thing.
Yeah.
John, what do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I really, really liked this episode. I would give it 4.5 googly eyes out of 5. I thought the opening was just that nice little breath. I thought everything going at the Price Max warehouse was just so tense and sort of on edge. And I think Roxanne, played by Missy Pyle, is just really great in the character. I love the complication of Sam and Hero, Nora and Mackenzie. That's really intriguing to me. I love that they've continued 355's sort of her kind of weirdness in a way as to, what is this. She's doing a lot of internalizing, and I guess it's part of her training. But the stuff here that she's just not telling anyone, it's not necessarily about Yorick, it's not necessarily about Alison Mann or the President. It's about her, and it's about the organization that she works for, and the Culper Ring. And I love how that's playing out, and beginning to at least have, in this episode, have questions on the relationship, to the point where both Alison Mann and Yorick were going to sort of make their own way, that they feel she is becoming unhinged.
Yeah. I love that moment. I completely forgot to mention it as well. I love that moment when Yorick goes, "But you told me to do it, Dr. Mann." And she's like, "I didn't tell you. I slightly recommended it. You took your own decision." She was really convincing.
He's such a child. Such a child.
But so is she as well. That's what I mean. She was taking no responsibility for it. She just kind of said, "No, I suggested it. You made the decision." And you're going, no. She was really forceful about it.
And then again, it's these different melting pots, isn't it? And it's really creating great dramatization, characterization, and complexity around it all. And some of these, are going to begin to connect in. And the same applies for me for the Pentagon. So this was really a really great episode. I'll give it 4.5 googly eyes out of 5.
Excellent.
Ew.
I know. Oh, googly eyes. And it was Alison Mann that used that phrase in this episode, where she was saying that Yorick was Googling a little too much at Agent 355, potentially in love.
I love how Dr. Mann says that as well, because she's kind of going, "I have a face. I know that when you look at me, you don't look at me like that."
Exactly.
Like that. So, really good. Before we go to feedback, I want to give a quick shout out to Run for Your Lives podcast, who covered the Day of the Dead from 1970s and the most recent Day of the Dead. I was listening to their podcast earlier on this week, just before I watched this episode, which is why I was suddenly picking up all the Day of the Dead references in the episode. I love Day of the Dead, but I just haven't seen it in a while. I just wanted to give a shout out to Paik and Daphne over there for their excellent podcast, because it got it all in my mind for this episode.
Is that the Snyder one?
The Day of the Dead Snyder remake of the George Romero.
Okay.
Yes, they covered both of those this week over their podcast. So
I love the original, and the Snyder was as good but completely different, but was as good in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. But guys, let us get on to our feedback. First off, we have Facebook feedback over on our group. You can head on over there to our spoiler comments and posts that we put up for every episode of Why the Last Man. Just head on over to facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, assuming it's up and running, of course. First up, we have Wendy Ott Eppers, who says, "I haven't been able to keep up, so I'm never in time to leave feedback, but I'm loving the show and your podcast is great." Thanks so much for your feedback, Wendy. And no problem at all if you're not in time, but we thought we would read this out just so that you have some feedback on there, and we're really pleased that you're enjoying the show and the podcast discussions as well.
Yeah,
especially if you're giving good feedback. If you're happy with the show, it's even better. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Wendy. Great to hear from you as well. Thanks so much for your thoughts. Dr. Bob Phillips was talking about last week's episode 5, which just aired on Disney Plus over here in Europe this week. He says that was an excellent episode, oddly full of hope, with the decently done Chardonnay exposition moment between Yorick and Dr. Mann about variations of sexual characteristics, to the unquestioning and open offer for Yorick to access a group of trans guys, through to the fetal heartbeat and the battle of the three-figure agents, where we saw that even those given digital IDs can be hoodwinked into thinking they are the special one by a player. Ooh, that's a really interesting breakdown of that episode, Dr. Bob.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bob. I have to ask, are you John to Dr. Mann and her views on genetics?
End of society.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Bob.
Yep, thanks so much, Bob.
Over on email, we have an email from the one and only Victor, who had this to say: "Greetings, survivors. I see why still has curious wanderlust, despite 355's warnings. I think Dr. Mann is Weird Al. Is 355 sleepwalking a result of past trauma combined with culpa ring training and conditioning? Is Roxanne's group becoming something else with all the reincarnations with Greek names? Nice to see Alison doing something useful by knocking out one of the soldiers. It would seem Regina has officially thrown the gauntlet and Jennifer has accepted. Keep the faith, survivors. Victor Von Doom. Thank you, Victor.
Yes.
I have to, you are raising some good questions, and I suppose only time will tell. But there is a mixture of yeses and nos in all of those.
No, can you be specific though, Chris?
Well, I
think
suppose
Chris is running for political office there.
Yeah, I am. I am going to slightly. I'm going to kiss some babies. But no, is 355's sleepwalking a result of past trauma? The assumption potentially would be yes. But again, yes, a no's and a maybe.
Yes and no. You choose which ones you think are right, and Chris will take your vote at the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think certainly Roxanne's group is becoming a certain reincarnation of Greek mythology. Whether it goes full on comic is another matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Mann is not Weird Al, by the way. Did anybody see Weird Al Yankovic's reaction to an episode of a TV show appearing on his DVR last week, saying Weird Al is dead? He was really surprised by it appearing, and was retweeting it out to all of his
He's
followers.
going, am I dead?
Hang on a second. Thanks, I guess.
Was it there? There was another. It happened last year or this year. Time is weird. I do remember there was another well-known celebrity who was trending on Twitter because everyone thought he was dead, and he had to come out and say he wasn't dead. I can't remember who it was. It was
sadly that happens quite a lot. When people trend on Twitter, and fans of major stars like to get them trending on Twitter, talking about their movies or TV shows or music that they've created over time, and then suddenly it appears in trending, and everybody goes, "Oh my god, that person's dead!" So no, but luckily that's not happening.
No, but I do like your wordplay, Victor, on Dr. Mann is Weird Al.
Yes, Weird Allison. Yes, like that. Thanks so much, Victor, and thanks to everybody for your feedback. We have one final piece of feedback for this week. We have a voicemail in from Steve Brown.
Hey guys, it's Steve, and this is for Why the Last Man, episode 6. Does that say Weird Al is dead? Man, that's tragic. Weird Al, I guess he's a man, so yeah. What a weird question. Do you think he masturbates? She just said Agent 355 has a locker combination instead of a name. That's hilarious. All right, he said, rest in peace, Weird Al. It's not really technically the title of the episode, so I can't do a mic drop for that one. I have to mention, because she said it so many times in the last episode. Now he's told her to put her mask on. He just said pull a Home Alone on him. Great. This conversation between Regina and Kim reminds me of what Derek, I think you were talking about, the fact that technically, since Jennifer was promoted to Speaker of the House, she was technically in line to be the president. Okay, is Beth saying she didn't lose the man she loved because she didn't love him, or because she knows he's alive? I'm confused. This whole conversation with Beth and Sam has been great, and I can see that he's, not seen, or there's a suspicion for him. Yeah, with these women. Dang, how tragic is that to be a mother willing to sacrifice your child? Oh, this is just harsh. She's a covert, I don't know what, and she's making this up as she goes along. You've got a point, but at the same time, she's the most capable of the three of you. Mm-hmm. Dang, that was amazing. Missy Pyle just delivered this monologue about being a woman in this apocalyptic time. Wow, she just nailed it. Wow. I know it's been a bit, but Dr. Mann offering the wafer to the monkey and the body of Christ. It's hilarious to me. Okay, did I miss something? What is this ritual they're doing to Laura? Okay, so it's like a baptism and they change her name. This is a weird cult. Sam just said that. Oh, I love it. It's not that she's trapped out there with them. They're trapped out there with her. So I just realized the president is the only one that she knows that Agent Bergen is not her real name. Wow. Okay. That ending. Yeah. Straight out. I don't know. Yeah. You guys have to help me with this one.
Excellent, Steve. Hopefully we've helped you throughout the episode there. There's just one thing to comment on from that. When Hera says she wasn't with the man that she loved, I think she's saying You know, at least it wasn't a guy I loved that I killed. It was just some guy I was sleeping with who had a wife and kid and was breaking up with me effectively. I think that's what she was saying. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. And but as well, it was the look to Sam that suggested, you know, not necessarily that he's the one that she loves, but she loves him from a caring point of view. True. You know, it's a good job that he wasn't the one that, or that, you know, if he did have a Y chromosome, you know, she's basically saying, I'm really lucky. The one man I care about,
yeah, that's true,
is still alive.
Yeah.
Which is, I just thought was a really nice moment between the two of them, which ultimately, you know, starts to look a little tenuous when you get to that final scene with Hero and Roxanne.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can sense she doesn't want to go to Washington. We know that. And here is acceptance, cathartic for her, but also from the group, because you don't have to carry what you did before now. You can be yourself. It's a mantra, you know?
Yeah.
Dr. Mann.
Well, indeedly doodly.
We did really enjoy this. That scene, as you said, it's for me though. We still don't have a good enough reason from Hero as to why she does not want to go to Washington to see her mum. It's just aside from that fight, a couple of years ago, like it's the argument. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
I guess if you're the president's daughter, that comes with a whole ton of responsibility that Hero won't want. But she certainly hasn't said it. You're right. There's been no moment that she said it in the show. But if you're living in Washington and you're the daughter of a politician as well,
I'll say it's like Chelsea Clinton, or you know, they're in this harsh limelight and being projected with their parents and so on. I mean, it must be horrific. I know at university, Chelsea Clinton came where I was going, and all of a sudden the security, certainly around that college, not so much for mine, was just mental.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is. So I could just imagine it's nuts.
Yeah, I can see why Hero might not want a piece of that as well. But especially now that her mother's been elevated to president. But there you go. Right. Thanks so much, Steve, for your live, Steve. Really enjoyed that. It's always fun to hear the roller coaster of emotions as you're going through the episode. Really good stuff. Thanks again for joining us. If you do want to get in contact with us, like all of our wonderful fellow survivors, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can join us on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries.
Yeah, we're also on Twitter at tvpod industries. And of course, please support us in any way you want to. You can subscribe to the podcast on any podcast catcher of your choice. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you can provide regular amounts, any amount you wish to. And of course, we're on buymeacoffee.com/TVPI as well for one-off contributions. Any which way supporting the podcast is sharing the love and, of course, sharing the podcast. So thanks so much to everyone who provide that support and all the feedback and theories as well.
Yes. We really do appreciate any and all support. We will be back next week for, obviously, episode 7 of Y the Last Man. But also we will be back with the final episode of Marvel's What If. And as well doing the finale of our pub quiz and drawing the name. If you want to be in, don't forget you can go on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and check out where the pub quiz and all the questions and get your answers in by end of day Wednesday next week. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will be back with, as I said, Y the Last Man, episode 7, My Mother Saw a Monkey, next week.
My mother saw a monkey. Ooh, that sounds like Kimberly's mother might have seen Ampersand.
I think it might be.
Yorick.
She did, and Yorick was chasing Ampersand. Potentially, that's leading on from that story. That'll be really interesting to see.
That will be very good.
More machinations to do with monkeys in the Pentagon next time.
More monkeys in the Pentagon. That's just what we need.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow survivors. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep yourselves safe. Keep surviving.
Bye.
Bye.